Coach will start us out with a few opening comments, and then we'll take questions for a little bit.
Okay, good to see everybody again. A lot of familiar faces from the whirlwind of, I don't know what that was, 16th of January or something like that. 17th maybe, I can't remember. But it's been a crazy 3 weeks trying to build a staff, build a team, get to know our team, meet our team. And we're getting close. We're getting closer to where we want to be as we enter into this next phase, which will start really the 13th of February. A couple of exciting additions to the staff defensively this week. We hired Steve Belichick to be our defensive coordinator. We hired Vinny Sinceri to be one of our position coaches on defense. I believe he'll coach the safeties. We're interviewing a couple more people for that final spot on defense, but with Coach Kafusi and Coach Richardson and Coach Belichick and also Coach Sinceri, we're excited about the defensive staff. Trying to figure out a couple of the analysts and GAs at this point, but we should be in a good spot here by Tuesday. Offensively, obviously, we talked earlier, we brought everybody with us on offense, so we have everybody from Brennan Carroll and Jimmy Doherty, Scotty Graham, Kevin Cummings, Jordan Paupau, who will also be running our special teams, to all of our analysts and graduate assistants that we could bring, we did bring. So it's a pretty exciting time. And then to wrap it up with the people that we brought with us was our recruiting department. So as we're entering into today, which is, I guess, National Signing Day, although it doesn't necessarily feel like that anymore. National Signing Day feels like the December signing, not today. It certainly is interesting based on the amount of transfers that have come in and signed with us, the amount of change of location for some, a lot of the players in the 2024 class that were committed to our staff have now committed to our staff here. Most of them have signed 8 agreements today, and we're excited to be able to, what I would say will end up, it looked like 24/7, I guess, had us 29th or something like that, 17th with the transfers, and exciting where that looks as we're trying to build this thing. But we also know that there were some really good players that they signed before we arrived, some really good players that have signed since we arrived, and we know that the next National Signing Day will take place in May. So when the portal window winds up opening and closing between April 15th and April 30th. And then we will do everything we can to have the best recruiting class Washington has ever had for the class of 2025. So really excited about how things are headed, really excited about where things are going, and we're fortunate that we're able to get our feet on the ground a little bit now and start building the relationships with our team.
How's this situation kind of compare now to what you took over at Arizona 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways it's polar opposite. We took over a program that was on a 12-game losing streak and left on a 7-game winning streak. They were 0-12 and then wound up and losing to their rivals by 9 touchdowns. This team was 14-0 going into the final game of the year, beat their rivals, beat the rivals twice in terms of beating Oregon, beat Washington State, won the Apple Cup, and played in the national championship game. So in terms of the polar opposites, you would say by record, they're completely opposite. The interesting part of it is 20 of those 22 starters are no longer going to be on the team from this past year. When you look at who's returning, it looks like there's only 2 returning starters from the national championship game. So now, you know, what type of team do we have? And what does that look like? And that's what we have to figure out. But it's a super confident team. It's a team that has won a ton of games. It's a lot of players that have committed to a winning program. And for that, it's certainly different than what we had when we really had to build it up from where it was.
You mentioned that a number of guys have signed grant and aid today. Are you able to list who the guys are that are official or anything like like that.
Yeah, from what I understand, the guys that I can announce at this point are, well, we know that Will Rogers, Drew Azzopardi, Sebastian Valdez are all here. We know that Damon Williams has signed, Adam Muhammad has signed, Justin Okema has signed, Raheem Wright has signed, Bryce Butler has signed, Jonah Coleman has signed, Jeremiah Hunter has signed, Brian Parham has signed, Ephesians Prysock has signed, Jordan Shaw has signed, and then I think there's 5 or 6 more that at this moment we can't discuss, but should be able to discuss within the hour or so, or there should be information that come out today on those guys. And then what was really exciting was getting certain players to leave the portal and return, right? That was a huge part of our recruitment. Guys like Packy Feedout, Justice Williams, Peyton Waters, Marmar, those guys to be able to say they believed in what we were trying to get accomplished and come back. There might be some others. Kamori House, I know, is another one. And we had to work really hard to make sure we could build the confidence of the rest of those guys to stay when the change was made here. And Coach DeBoer headed off to Alabama. And in a very short period of time, they were introduced to us. And we didn't have a defensive staff. So there were some guys that left. And they're probably looking back on it now and saying, maybe we shouldn't have.
Could you talk a little bit about Will Rogers entering the portal and just the process of recruiting him back, and if you had a prior knowledge of him?
Yeah, with Will, we played against him twice when we were at Arizona. We played him in 2022. We played him in 2023. So there was some familiarity in the player, not the person. I didn't know him really well in that regard. I obviously saw his production, and we as a staff were able to quickly notice that there was somebody that had 12,000 yards in the SEC and 1,900 attempts, and immediately you want to take notice. He went in the portal because I think he wanted to see, A, what his options were, and B, what our options were. Were we looking to bring in a veteran quarterback or someone that most recently has been a starter, or were we comfortable bringing in just a young guy that signed with us but didn't play yet and in demand? So when Will saw what our plan was, we were able to share with Will. If you look at the track record of our staff, when we were at UCLA in 2017, we were the 3rd-ranked passing team in the country. When you look at the same staff went to Arizona in 22, we were the 6th-ranked passing team in the country. And last year, we were the 8th-ranked passing team in the country, and all 3 of them were 3 different quarterbacks. And in the middle of that, we were at the Rams, where we were the number 1 ranked passing team in the NFL. So I shared that with Will. I showed him what we would do with him. And at that point in time, we spoke with his family, his parents. Coach Doherty had a lot of conversations with his dad, who's a high school coach. And we all came to the conclusion that this would be a great opportunity for him to stay and build his resume up.
Do you have a target number of scholarship offensive linemen you want to get to and you want to add? And how important will the spring portal be in that? And I guess how confident are you that you can get to that number through the spring portal?
Right. Right now, we're in a situation where I believe we're at 8 or 9 scholarship linemen, and 3 of them will not be able to participate in spring ball due to injury. So we're looking at a situation where we've got about 10 linemen for spring ball, which is okay as long as you've got the reinforcements coming in May. My hope is to sign probably 4 to 5 more scholarship linemen and for this class. And I think that if we build it the right way, there's some great opportunities there for guys to come in and compete to be starters. And the guys that are here are going to have a great opportunity to compete to be starters. We've played freshmen. When we were the last place we were at, we had a freshman All-American, then we had another freshman All-American, and then we had a third one that I think would have been one if he didn't get hurt. So we feel really confident in playing true freshmen and redshirt freshmen. In the same regard here, I believe the same, that whoever we have will play. We're going to play the best 5 and or 6. and certainly believe that there's going to be an opportunity in April for a lot of good players to want to join the one of the best teams in the country.
Who are the linemen that are going to miss spring?
I don't know exactly. I know that Hatchett is coming off of an injury. Guard Memilar is coming off of an injury. So both of those guys are, when I say miss spring, I'm referring to more of like the full contact drills based upon the extent of the injuries.
Can you assistants having NFL experience, a Carroll, a Belichick on staff, is part of your pitch too that this is a place that's going to get you ready for the NFL? And do you feel like that plays up even more given the current landscape of college?
Yeah, I mean, I think NFL is a lot more important than NIL. And I think when you have an opportunity to sell the NFL, you should do it. The difference of some programs is they want to, sell it. We can tell it. We can tell you what it's actually like. Steve Belichick and Brennan Carroll have lived, breathed, and were born into the National Football League. There is no question that both of our coordinators, forget their 14 years or 7 years of coaching experience in it, they have 40 years or 36 years of living in it. I would expect that we'll have 2 of the 4 members of the Mount Rushmore walking around our building very often. And I think when you can get that done, that's an incredible opportunity for the kids. On top of that, I've been fortunate to coach in the NFL myself for 14 years. Running back coach, played in the NFL for 7 years. And the safeties coach we just hired, played in the NFL, was a 5th-round pick. And when you get all those guys here, we can tell these kids what it looks like, what it feels like, what to expect, what's real money look like, not NIL money, but actually the real money, the real salaries, the opportunity to get a second contract and make 10x what you ever, 20x, 30x what you ever dreamt of making on a college program. And we hope that not only does our messaging hit, but we hope our scheme hits. And that when the NFL watches our games, which they all will, they will see what it looks like at the collegiate level to run NFL scheme. And we hope that that translates to the draft.
Jedd, when you look back at the last 3 weeks, can you sort of break down how much time was spent between recruiting kids from here that were in the portal versus kids that you were talking to from Arizona versus kids that you were looking at who were committed here in the first place?
Yeah, well, there's 2 challenges there. You can only talk to people that are available to talk to. So if they're not in the portal, you can't talk to them, which is a challenge in itself. Then you've got the group that wants to get to know you because they've committed to you, but they're in the portal to go look somewhere else. Then you have the next group that has signed with you, but they want to consider getting out of their national letter of intent because they chose a different staffer. And then you have your own team who you need to figure out the guys that aren't in the portal to make sure they don't go in it. And then, the craziest part is the only time that I'm allowed out until next December is the 3 weeks in January as a head coach. So if I don't start looking and talking to the 2025s, then I'm going to be behind, Dan Lanning, or I'm going to be behind Lincoln Riley, or I'm going to be behind, Ryan Day and guys because they're spending time talking to those kids. So if I was to say what are the percentages, I'd say it's pretty close to 20% for each. And it's not fair to your own team. You'd like it to be 80% to your team, 20% to the next one. But in these 3 weeks, it truly was everybody was out doing everything they could to put together a team, keep a team together, and still try to achieve our goal of having the best recruiting class University of Washington has ever had.
Does Big Ten recruiting look different than Pac-12 recruiting?
Yeah, I think Big Ten certainly looks different, when you look at our schedule and you look at playing the Apple Cup week 3, then you look at hosting Michigan, then you look at going to Iowa, then you look at going to Penn State, going to Oregon, hosting USC, hosting UCLA, and others, going to Indiana, that you've got to understand, going to Rutgers, that you are competing with the big dogs that all have big money, that are all going to make sure that every aspect of their program is an A+. Their facility, their treatment of players, their coaches. You're in the big leagues, and it's like an NFL Sunday every Saturday. And that's what I've kind of said this whole time. You are now playing every single week on the most watched stage, on the best time in national broadcasts. And you're going to play on the East Coast. You're going to play on the West Coast. You're going to play in the Midwest. You're going to play Central Time Zone, Mountain Time Zone. And recruiting against those guys that have been established, have been doing it for a long time, is a huge challenge. As the SEC recruiting is mostly in the South. The Big Ten recruiting is national. And we've got to be just as national against them.
Coach, I know you've got a lot of respect for Arizona. Can you talk about the delicacy of, leaving Arizona and bringing in some of those people? Because I know that's got to be just tough at times. And also give us a little bit of insight to some of the guys that followed you here from Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I've said it before, that Sunday was so emotional and challenging because you knew deep down what was best and what was right, and taking care of your family, your coaches' families, and so many other people, and going to compete at the most unbelievable institution and go play in the greatest setting in college football. It's not hard if you look at it in the rational way, if you don't let your emotions get involved in that decision. Unfortunately, we all let our emotions get involved, so it was very hard when we made that decision to come here. Once we got here, we realized why we got here and how special University of Washington is. The players that have chosen to join us, whether that be Jonah Coleman, Ephesians Pricesock, Jordan Shaw, Damon Williams, and others that, have signed or will sign. But when you talk about those guys, particularly, that very first visit, that you realize that they said it themselves, that they committed to the people. They committed to what we wanted to offer them, as coaches and as mentors. And we tried to do everything we possibly could to create an environment that they realized, just like my own children realized, that the rules don't change just because we moved houses. And the same rules apply. The same culture in our home applies. The same curfew applies. All those things apply whether we live in a house in Tucson or we live in a house in Seattle. Well, the same for those players. They're choosing the people. And we treat them like our sons. They came here as our sons. And we enjoyed the opportunity to meet all these new sons that are here in Seattle. Jonah Coleman, I believe, is probably one of the best running backs in the country, to answer your question on the people itself. I think he PFF-wise was ranked top 3 or so in terms of yards per carry. I think it's 6.6 or something to that effect. He made a huge impact in our program. He's an unbelievable pass catcher. He understands protections. He loves the game of football, and he can run the ball at the highest level. Ephesians Pricesock came over as a corner. I think that if you look at the way he played all year long, he started every single game, played every single snap at corner. He broke his finger or hand in the bowl game, got it wrapped, got it splinted, came in, one play later, dislocated again, got it clubbed, and played the rest of the game. He's tough, he's physical, he's 6'3", he's an NFL corner. Our goal is to get him to meet his dreams. Jordan Shaw transferred to us from Indiana, then to Arizona, now here. Never really transferred in December, so it's not like he played there, but he came to us as a nickel corner. He's only 1 year into college football, so it's a great opportunity to have him grow and develop as a corner. The other guys, Damon Williams, I think we all know about Damon. Damon has an unbelievable skill set as a thrower and a runner. He reminds me of the elite quarterbacks that are the true definition of a dual threat in regards to his ability to take off and scramble and run. He's not someone that I would design a lot of run game for because he's such a pure passer that we hope to see him sit in the pocket and go. And then some of the other guys that came on board that I think we can talk about from my notes says Adam Muhammad. Adam Muhammad was a running back that committed to us that very first weekend. Just a 200-pound, just finished seniors high school, is an absolute beast and is going to run the ball at an extremely high level. Offensive lineman Justin Hilkema, Moose, will be here in June. He's 6'8", 315 pounds. Raheem Wright, a nickel, from the same high school as Patrick Chung, one of the best nickels or safeties that played for the Patriots ever, and an opportunity to have Raheem. And then Brian Parham and Bryce Butler. One's a linebacker from San Jose State who was one of the top linebackers in the Mountain West, and Bryce is a defensive lineman we needed.
It's Steve Belichick, what was it about your time around him or what he brought to the table in his interview that made him the guy besides the NFL experience? Because obviously there's a lot of guys with NFL experience that you could have hired. What kind of separated him as being the right person for this opportunity?
Yeah, we interviewed five or so guys in that coach in the NFL for the role. Steve was always a guy that I had my eyes set on, that I really wanted to run our defense. He is brilliant, number one. He's been a play caller for 4 years in the NFL. That was a big part of it, where I thought that he had a great separation there, is the fact that he called games for, I think it ended up being 72 games he called, not including preseason. So when you're a play caller, you have a unique ability to react. His defense was ranked overall in those 4 years number 2 in total defense when you take the efficiency grade that's given out. They know how to take the ball away. They believe in fundamentals. They believe in tackling. They believe in really what it takes to be good in college football, which is the basics. And if you're around Coach Belichick or Steve, both of those guys understand that before we do anything, we better learn how to shed a block and tackle and set the edge and play with great fundamentals. And when I met with Steve and we interviewed Steve, that was really the biggest pitch that he made was, we're going to focus on making these kids great football players. We'll worry about the scheme later.
You mentioned it a little bit, but what is your ideal type of quarterback? What do you look for, traits, and then how do you, when evaluating Will and Damon, kind of the contrast, because obviously one's more of a total pure pocket passer. Damon sounds like he can do a bit of both.
Yeah, completion percentage is really, really important to us. Being able to find players on the field to complete the ball to. Sometimes how you keep a play alive. Are you able to make throws outside the framework of a play? I think we've all seen the greatest quarterback in this generation, or whatever you want to call these last 10 years, is the king of making plays off schedule. The quarterback prior to that was the greatest, probably the greatest of all time, who's won 7 Super Bowls, was able to get the ball out of his hands as quick and efficiently as humanly possible. They're two different quarterbacks in Brady and Mahomes, but both of which are elite at what they do. If Andy Reid had Tom Brady or Bill Belichick had Patrick Mahomes, I don't think the records would be any different. So we're going to try to get the ball into or out of the guy's hands as quick as possible into somebody else's hands to make plays. And if the play's on schedule, it looks great. If the play's off schedule, it can't look bad. And that's really what we look for in the quarterbacks.
You mentioned offensive line being a little thin there. Is there another position or two that you're really concerned about depth and needing to add more guys going into spring football?
I think always the front, whether it's the O-line or the D-line, you're always going to look to try to add. You're always going to try to look to get big, especially in the Big Ten. You're going to always look to see if you're able to add pass rushers. You're always going to look to see if you can add tackles, because those are the guys that protect the passer, or those are the guys that sack the passer. So really, that's where our focus is going to be. I feel very confident in our team and who we have at the skill positions right now. We didn't really want to upset the apple cart in a lot of spots because of the fact that we had some really good players there. Now, we're never going to turn down great players. And if great players want to come here, we're going to take them. And that's just very simple. That's just the way any of us who grew up in the profession would say, if you got a great player that wants to come, you find a way to get him on the field.
Jedd, has there been any player that has helped you kind of in this transition from the previous staff? I know Caleb Presley was one of the first guys to go on social media and kind of declare he wasn't going anywhere, right? Has there been a player or two that's really kind of stood out to you that has helped a lot with this transition?
Yeah, it's really a crazy time that you're like getting guys on social media and saying, I'm staying home or I'm not leaving or I'm going to make all those things. While I appreciate all of the guys doing that, that makes a big difference. What I really would love everybody to do is just play ball where, just let's go play ball, and in the locker room, make sure guys don't leave. And what I think, like Carson Bruner has done a great job of coming up here and talking to me. EJ, Elijah Jackson's been great. Will Rogers has been great. Cam Davis has been great. There's a lot of them. I'm probably missing many of them. But Packy Finau was great when we had a great meeting. And all those guys matter. Everybody matters. And if we can get the whole team to be fully on board with what we're trying to get done right now, I believe that everybody that decides to come here will have made a good decision, and everybody that decides to stay will also make a great decision. And that's really where we're looking to build this thing. And it's going to take whatever time it takes, however long it takes. But my biggest thing is we've got to find a way to sustain success and be able to go back to back to back top recruiting classes and be able to start really finding our way year in and year out.
Do you have a start date yet for spring practice or a date for the spring game?
Yeah, we're going to start spring practice April 2nd. And we're doing that because we have a finals week and we have a spring break in those 2 weeks in March. And I really don't want to separate the spring ball right now. Plus, we need a little extra time to put our offense and defense in.
You need another coach. Is that an edge coach?
Is that a what?
Edge rusher coach?
No, Coach Kafusi will coach the edge rushers, and they'll coach the defensive line. We'll probably be looking at more of a inside linebacker coach right now. And in terms of the spring game, we're working on final dates, but it should be the weekend of the 3rd, 4th, 5th. That weekend will allow us to have the spring game. We'll do 5 weeks, 3 practices a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, wide open. Anyone can come. And we'll talk more about that later, but our practices are for anybody, media, public, whatever you'd like.
Jedd, the previous staff didn't have any in-state local recruits. Is that still important, or is the transfer portal kind of made it less relevant than ever?
No, I think it's very important. We're going to host a social for all of the high school coaches in the area next week. Or 2 weeks ago, I think it is from now, invite them over so I can meet them. I think the Seattle Swarm is necessary, and we need to find a way to get the best players in the state here. And whether we can get out to Tacoma, whether we can get to Seattle, whether we can make other hits, there's some really good players that are from the state of Washington that have come through here. And we're not going to miss on those. Just because they're in our backyard and we think it's easy to get them.
So what position group does Belichick coach if you're looking for a linebackers coach?
He's going to work with, he's going to kind of walk around, be one of the more of a walk-around coordinator that will allow him to spend time with Coach Kafusi in the front 4. He was a Sam linebacker and outside linebacker coach for 4 years, and then he coached the safeties for 4 years, so he'll work with the back end as well. But as we're putting the scheme together, we thought the most important thing we could do is let Steve have the opportunity to be in all the position meetings, walk around to all the position groups in the same manner his dad did at one point in time, to really be able to oversee the whole defense as we're getting it the way we want it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.